Hello my friends, and we are back with my best books of 2020. What's up guys, my name is Dom, welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, I typically make bookish content, movie content, and anything else because I like to do whatever I want on this channel. Today's video is going to be the best books I read in 2020. I read a total of 48. I have picked out 10. Yes, the thumbnail you only see like 7, I think. I don't know, I didn't count. Because I don't own all of them, I read a lot of library books and ebooks this year. Alright, let's get started. So at book number 10, we are starting out at 3.75 out of 5 stars. We have Here I Am by Jonathan Safran Foer. This book is basically about a family who are having their troubles in the midst of their son's bar mitzvah. The main central motif of this novel, motif, is Judaism. A lot of things I liked about this book from what I remember is that the main thing was the dialogue of this novel. When the couple fought, I think their names were Jacob and Julia. When they fought, I didn't feel like I was reading a book. I felt like I was eavesdropping on a conversation I should have been hearing. I felt like I had to look away, go to another room, let them sort it out. And it's just one of those novels where you know its end game, you know the end result, and yet you still just don't want it to happen. I sobbed at the end of this novel. I don't know why I sobbed. I've read other books like this. I've read other books that were sadder than this, but I've never sobbed before. And I think it's just because of how real this book was to real life. It's just probably also due to when I read this. I was making a huge life change when I read this. I was about to move to Orlando, Florida for the Disney College program, and I think whenever I have to move places, I get very, very overwhelmed because Chicago's forever my home, and as much as I want to explore the rest of the world, when I'm making what I thought was a permanent change at the time, it's scary, so maybe that's why. I mean, this was a library book, so I obviously couldn't bring it to Florida with me, and I didn't finish it like in time. I had to wake up at 4 in the morning so I could leave my house at 5 in the morning. I stayed up until 2 a.m. to finish this book, and as soon as I read that last line, which was a punch in the gut, I just sobbed. Sobbed my eyes out. And this is the one and only book I've ever done that before. Usually, I mean, books have made me tear up before. Very few books have made like literal tears stream down my face. This one, I just fucking sobbed. And I don't know why, because at the end of the day, I only gave it 3.75 out of 5 stars. It's not a great book by any means. It was simply okay. But I think it's just going to hold a special place in my heart because of the sobbing. Coming in at number 9, we have Bronx Masquerade by Nikki Grimes. This one I'm going to talk about a little bit more just because I don't do December wrap-ups and I read this in December. So this book takes place in the Bronx, New York. It's heavily inferred that it's a rough neighborhood because in the beginning Tyrone makes a comment how he doesn't plan for the future because he doesn't know if he has one, if he's going to live long enough. It's a group of kids in their English class, and then one day they have an idea where, I think it's either Wesley or Tyrone, where they want to read poetry out loud, and then their teacher decides to have open mic Fridays, and then the classmates get to read their poetry. This is another book I gave 3.75 out of 5 stars, still better than Here I Am, and it was pushing 4 stars until the ending. And I'll get to that. So this book I thought was beautiful. I'm clearly, once you like read the book, it's obvious that I'm clearly too old. I'm not in the target audience anymore, and I saw that a lot there on Goodreads reading it. Like a lot of adults struggle with it, whereas kids love it. I loved it just because it reminded me of growing up in a city. I'm not from a rough neighborhood, so I don't actually visually see what a lot of these kids have to see. I am from a pretty okay neighborhood. But I still went to a city school. I still heard this. I watched the news. First of all, I see it on the news. I see the news. I went to a city school, so I heard stories from fellow classmates, from my own friends. Word gets around. Because I saw one of the critiques of this novel is that a lot of the things that happened to the kids were too out there, weren't plausible, were unbelievable, thinking bad thing after bad thing, when in reality, a lot of what these kids went through is really not out of the ordinary for people who grew up in a city. They're common stories I heard. And I've never really seen that in a book before, because a lot of the books I read, they always take place in like small towns, so they don't have the same things that cities do. And then when books do take place in a city, I think I've read maybe 1 or 2 books that took place in Chicago, and you know, the author romanticized it. She talked about the characters lived in well-off neighborhoods, and then when they went downtown, it was very romanticized. Like they don't really talk about what actually goes on in the cities. I thought the poems were beautiful. A lot of figurative language, which is what I like in poetry. I like poetry with enough figurative language where they're not like simple everyday prose, but like is worded in a way where I don't feel stupid, so I understand what's going on. The formula for this is that you're introduced to a child, they give you their backstory, you read their poem, and then Tyrone is arguably the main character because he's the commentary you hear after each poem. And a lot of these kids made me cry. There's a lot of point of views, which I was worried about going into the book because usually a lot of point of views don't work for me. But it worked for this. Each one had their individual believable story, their believable voice. Some kids' character arcs are like rushed given how long the book is. The book's only like 150 pages. And again, rushed because we're not the target audience, it's for younger kids. It made me miss high school in a way because I kind of missed the sense of community. That these kids, because at the end of the novel, these kids did have a sense of community, and I missed that. And I will say the reason I took about like a quarter of a star off, and the main reason it wasn't like 5 out of 5 is because the epilogue. The epilogue was a totally different student's point of view, and it didn't match the tone of the rest of the novel. It was a weird transition between Tyrone's last chapter and the epilogue. I just feel like it should have ended differently. It was off. It was a little disjointed to me. But other than that, it's number 9 on the list out of 48 books, so it couldn't be that bad. Number 8 is a Hear Me Out book. The Hear Me Out book here is It by Stephen King. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars, but Hear Me Out, because I like this differently than what people usually like it. Okay, so I made a whole vlog about this book, and I'm trying to summarize that 38-minute vlog. I'm not giving it 4 out of 5 stars for the plot. Quite frankly, I don't really like the plot, if I gotta be honest. I didn't mind the writing in the beginning of the book, actually, where they flipped off between children and adults. I thought that added to the suspense, that added to the mystery, until I got to the end, and then you find out what it actually is. I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting that. I didn't like it. Stephen King, this book is a product of its time. There were things I didn't care about reading. Yeah, okay, so when I think we all know how Stephen King writes women. Like, this is not old news. The way he would describe Bev as an adult, shitty, but like, I would roll my eyes like, oh my god, that's just a man being a man, you know, that kind of thing. But then, like, you would read how he would describe Bev as a child, and I'm like, that's a little weird. I don't need to read about an 11-year-old girl's boobs. I understand we were reading them through an 11-year-old boy's point of view, but at the same time, it was kind of weird. I did not need to read about 2 12-year-old boys masturbating. That's a thing. What I really did not need to read about was the 6 pages of child porn. And of course, Bev was the victim in that. Couldn't they have spoken in tongues? I'm sorry. Is that a spoiler saying it's child porn? Because I've noticed in reviews people are like, the weird part. But it's like, I mean, I feel like I should warn the world. Like, if you're affected by that stuff, you should know it's child porn. I should also add that he drops the N-word a lot in this book. Okay, like, the bully's language is one thing, because Henry Bowers is the bully. Henry Bowers is supposed to be problematic. Take that as you will. But it's one, like, you know, people like Richie, who's supposed to be the good guy. Like, because he has voices, and one of his voices that he imitates, one of them is, like, N-word, whatever the guy's name was. Like, is that necessary? I mean, I understand the time period of the book. We could chalk it up to product of its time all we want. Like, I can't imagine being not white and reading some of this for myself, if that makes sense. After complaining about it, why did I give this 4 out of 5 stars? Because I grew attached to these characters. First of all, I liked learning about like the 50s, 60s, because that's when my parents grew up. It reminded me of being friends with my friends back in middle school. Like, we were all really shitty to each other, which is what these kids remind me of. Some of the shit they said, I was like, this is not okay. But like, also, have y'all heard middle schoolers talk? And in the end, they just all really cared for minus the fucking child porn scene. In the end, they all like just really cared for each other. Like, every time they would hold hands and like promise, I would get like a tear in my eye because I'm a fucking bitch baby. The chapter where they like hold hands and promise to come back to each other, you know, that got me in my feels. Firmly believe that's when the book should have ended, but whatever. And then there's the last 2 chapters that I am of the belief that those chapters aren't needed. And then granted, one of them, Mike specifically, made me cry because I felt so bad for them and I loved the friendship so much. But really the reason it was a 3 out of 5 star read as I was reading this, but once I put the book down, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because I grew so attached to everyone. I love Bev, and I felt so bad for her because King really did her fucking dirty. Like, you couldn't have tortured another character once in a while. I love Eddie. Richie's my least favorite. I mean, I like him, but he's my least favorite. It took me so long to read this book. Usually I could finish a book in a week. This took me 2 months, so I kind of like held on to these characters for a while. And then the other reason I am putting it in my top 10 is simply because of how big this book is and how proud I am of getting through it, especially in 2 months. And for the fact I did like the beginning. Georgie's chapters actually scared me, like in the beginning where you find out what happened to him. And I liked the concept of a killer clown killing children and people trying to stop it until it took the turn it did and I was confused. So you're probably questioning, why is this book on the list? You know what? I don't know. But it's here. I'm accomplished. I love the characters. The plot can kiss my ass. But we're going to move on because I'm putting my foot in my mouth when it comes to this book, I swear. So coming in at number 7, this is another 4 out of 5 star read. It's I'll Give You the Sun by Jandy Nelson. This is about 2 twins. But it takes place in 2 point of views. When it's Nick's point of view, it takes place in the past when they're 13. And when it's in Jude's point of view, it takes place when they are, it takes place in the present when they are 16. And it's just both of them dealing with trauma. And that's really all I could say. 1, because kind of all I can remember. 2, because what I do remember are spoilers. I was not expecting to cry. I didn't cry, but I was not expecting to feel the emotions I did. Because I said multiple times on this channel, I don't reach for YA contemporary anymore just because I have a hard time connecting to the characters. I will still read it just in case I find some secret gems like History Is All You Left Me. And this book, I ended up liking it. I think I made a vlog for this actually. Yeah, because I made a vlog for the first ever book I read. I stayed up late to finish it. I was emotional. The end. I can't talk about this book well because it's the first book of the month and I don't own it, so I can't like skim it just to refresh my mind. The plot twist I kind of saw coming, and yet I was still so upset when it happened. You know, it's just a gut-wrenching YA contemporary. You know what? I'm just gonna move on because I like genuinely, I don't know how to talk about it without spoiling it, and then like non-spoilery, I don't remember enough. But every character was likable. Every character made me feel bad for them. We need more art in our lives, and there is gay representation in this book. So coming in at number 6 is a reread. It is 4 out of 5 stars. It is New Moon by Stephanie Meyer. I have a vlog about this too that you guys should go check out. I decided to reread the Twilight series because Midnight Sun came out. I don't have a lot to say about this book. It's the second book of the Twilight series. And Stephanie Meyer's writing is not winning awards anytime soon, especially in this one, because I actually make a comment in the Eclipse vlog, like, her writing between this one and Eclipse improved drastically. And you know what? It's 4 out of 5 stars for the pure enjoyment I got out of this. I had some qualms with it, and you could see that in the vlog. Like, Sam and Emily's dynamic, the fact that he hurt her pretty bad and she stuck with him, doesn't sit well with me. I've said that so many fucking times. Jacob is kind of turning into a dick in this one. He's more of a dick in Eclipse, but this is when we start seeing it. The pure enjoyment, the YA trash I needed in my life. And it's not 5 out of 5 stars because it's not my favorite in the series. It's my second favorite. And we will get to the other one soon. So number 5, and we are still in the 4 out of 5 star range, but it is Legendary Ireland, The Myths and Legends of Ireland by Etne Massey. This is just what the title says. She takes the myths and legends of Ireland, she tells them to you, and then right before that she'll actually give some background of the area, like Giant's Causeway. You learn about it first and then you read the story, which I think is very, very helpful because if you've never been to Ireland, it's kind of hard to tell. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars just because it's everything I needed. While I was in Ireland, I just had the urge. I went to Ireland in 2019. I had the urge to learn about it, learn about the stories. I've heard some growing up, like very few, but I heard some growing up, and I wanted to refamiliarize myself with it. And just because whenever I like go to countries, I always like want to learn about their myths and legends, especially because Ireland hones in on them so much. Like, yes, they're a super Catholic country today, but before that, this was their background, and I wanted to, and they still hold that dear to their hearts, which I highly respect. So I wanted to learn more about it. I didn't give it 5 out of 5 stars just because at some points it was a little draggy. And one thing I wish they had was a pronunciation guide because every single name is in Gaelic. Then again, I don't know if they're expecting non-Irish people to be reading this book, so maybe that's why it's not needed. Yeah, I came across a lot of names where it's like, I can't even sound it out because I don't even know how to say it. But other than that, I got what I wanted. It made me want to travel again. I miss Ireland. Out of all, because I went on that huge Europe trip in 2019, and all the cities I've been to, Dublin is in the top 3. I miss traveling. I want to travel. I want to be allowed in countries again, because we're like not allowed in countries, understandably. But I would like this all to go away so I can just travel without a worry. Okay, so starting with number 4, we're getting to our 5 out of 5 star area, and that will be Breaking Dawn by Stephanie Meyer, which is a reread. I did have a vlog for this. It's just it's not out yet. I had so much raw footage. It was an hour and 45 minutes. I still have 45 minutes to get through. That first hour I got down to 45, but still have another 45 to get through, and that's just the first watch through. The goal is to get it under 40 minutes. I don't know if that's going to happen because I talk a lot. There's so much to talk about in this book. And the thing is, I had a lot of issues with it. The writing is a lot better than New Moon. Let's give it that. But I had a lot of issues with it. One, how Jacob was treated, because I know a lot of people have issues with the fact that Rosalie would call him a dog. And Stephanie Meyer could chalk it up to him being a werewolf, but considering he is not white, there is an implication to that. It's a white girl calling a Native American a dog. Granted, Jacob's comebacks, on point. He stuck up for himself, and I have to stand. Other issues I had was just the fact Jacob imprinted on a literal child, and we as a society let that happen. The ending was a lot more rushed than I remember it being, and no wonder the movie added that fight scene, despite it being a big plot hole. No wonder they added it, because it was so anticlimactic. But 5 out of 5 stars, purely, solely because of how much I enjoyed myself reading this. I could hear my dog barking from across the house. It's like New Moon. This was the YA trash I needed, and I'm so excited to move on. So number 3, I'm grouping the whole series into one book, because I have multiple 4.5 out of 5 star reads and multiple 4.75 out of 5 star reads, but they're all from this series. So if I were to do individual books, this list would have been mostly the series, and I didn't want that. So number 3 on this list is just Tokyo Ghoul manga as a whole. There are 14, it's by Sue Yoshida, and there's 14 volumes. This is about a boy who just wants to go on a date. He does, but on his date, a ghoul, something called a ghoul, which is taking over Tokyo, is trying to eat him. And then there's an accident. He has an organ transplant, but it's her organs, and therefore he turns into this half ghoul, half human entity. And these things scare the people of Tokyo because they do eat humans, and in order to protect themselves, they have to live in hiding. So this whole series is basically him trying to come to terms with what he is, trying to fight against things, and it kept me on my toes. I think this one, I gave 4.75 out of 5 stars. Some of the volumes I gave 4.5, obviously, like I said. Some I gave 5 out of 5. Only one I did not like, and you will see that in my worst books of 2020. The art in this is absolutely amazing, but stuff like that, pretty cool. Something has never kept me on my toes the way this series did. I would be reading this at like 3 in the morning, because my thing with manga is I could read this in like less than 2 hours. So I would read 3 of them at a time, and they kept you on your toes, and I want to talk more about it, but I'll be spoiling. Bro, this was just so I don't know how to talk about things I like. Like the worst books, you guys will see I have no problem ranting about those books, but like talking about why I like things is so fucking hard, and I don't understand it. If you want to see my individual reviews of these, you could check out like all my wrap-ups, because I do talk about them individually. Favorite characters: Kaneki, Sweet Soul. Kaneki's the main character, and Toka. Granted, Toka took me a while to like her, but we stan. You know, we love her. And I'm reading the sequel. I'm going to be reading the sequel series this year, and I just found out that my ship is canon. I won't say who the ship is. You guys can probably guess it, but I'm not going to say who the ship is. But they're canon, and nothing brings me more joy than that, because my ships are never fucking canon. Art is amazing. The story's amazing. It just gets more intense as you go on. Like those last 2 volumes had me screaming. I think volume 14, I literally screamed at the end. I remember being slightly disappointed with how it ended, but then it kept going, and I was like, I need the sequel right now. So if you haven't read this, please do, or watch the anime. I heard the anime is pretty good too. I've not seen it, and fun fact, I've heard the theme song, or OP, I guess is what they're technically called. And the theme song's why I read this series, because it's such a good theme song. Coming in at number 2, we have Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins, which, yes, is like smacked right in the middle of the Hunger Games trilogy. Honestly, we can kind of group the Hunger Games trilogy as one book. I reread it in order to prepare for the prequel, but I'm just going to hold up this one because it is my favorite of the series. If you don't know what the Hunger Games is about, it takes place in about, I want to say, post-apocalyptic North America, in a country called Panam, where there were 13 districts, but then District 13 was destroyed, and the 12 districts' punishment is to have something called the Hunger Games, where 2 tributes, 1 boy, 1 girl, between the ages of 12 and 18 are chosen to fight to the death. So there's a total of 24 tributes. The last one standing wins the games. I think that's terrifying. Like, even if you lose, like, you're done for. I made a whole vlog series about this. I reacted to all the movies. Catching Fire is just my favorite just because I liked seeing the after effects of the Hunger Games. I remember how angry I was the first time I read this. I think I was in early high school when I first read these. I was so angry at the Court of Qual, and just the turnaround of the last part of the book, and just the political commentary is more noticeable now that I'm older, because I say these in the vlogs. When I was reading these when I was younger, it was just pure fantasy. You know, I was like, oh, this could never happen. But now that I'm older, there's a lot. I saw a lot of things being mirrored from real life. And because I think what we have to understand is that when authors write about these post-apocalyptic worlds, these dystopians, they're not writing what the future is. They're writing an exaggerated form of the present. Like, yes, we don't have a literal Hunger Games, but there's stuff she talks about that I see in politics today from both sides, not just one side. Like, I see it from both Democrats and Republicans. And it's an important lesson for teenagers because it makes you think. And because of the movies, the movies are more so of a YA story, whereas the books really hone in on the political commentary. I enjoyed it my second time around. Like, Katniss is my daughter now. I felt so bad for her multiple times. Peeta is so cute. He deserves the world. Gale can kiss my ass. I love what's-his-face, Hey Mitch. I didn't like him the first time I read the books, but now I do like him because, you know, I'm older and the world is not black and white and I can understand where he's coming from. It's a series that aged really well, and it's just one of those books I just couldn't put down because it was so action-packed, especially Mockingjay, not so much, but the first 2 I got through like this, you know? And that's all I'm going to say about that. I really don't know how to talk about books I like. I'm terrible. And finally, we have made it to book number 1, but it is Eliza and Her Monsters by Francesca Zappia. Remember when I said I don't gravitate towards YA contemporary because I can't connect to the characters, but I read it anyway just in case there's a special gem? This is one of those gems. I have not smiled the way I have smiled reading this book since high school. High school YA contemporary was my jam. Now, I lost that feeling until rereading this. If you don't know what this is about a girl named Eliza Merck. She's very quiet. She chooses not to talk to people. Her only 2 friends are online, but she has the most famous, most popular webcomic. She's the author of it, but no one knows it's her. It's a big secret. And then a boy comes to school, so you can guess it's a romance. And oh, it just made me smile. There are so many cute parts, and there's spoilers, so I can't really talk about it. But Wallace, what's his name, Wallace? Wallace needs to be protected at all costs. He is a sweetie. And the formatting of this book was great because there's obviously Eliza's prose. There's her narration. Sometimes you actually get to see her comic itself, which I thought was really cool. And the boy Wallace, he's actually a fan fiction writer. He's the most popular fan fiction writer of this comic. And you get to see his fan fiction sometimes. And obviously Francesca Zappia wrote all 3, like the prose, the fan fiction, the comic. But each one, it had like a slightly different voice because, you know, they are 3 different forms of media. Each one was well written, which proved to me she is a great writer if she could make a switch like that. And you know what? I just kind of related to Eliza a lot. Like, I mean, granted, I had friends unlike she did, and unlike her, I actually enjoyed my high school experience. You cannot pay me to repeat it. I don't want to repeat my teenage years. But I didn't hate myself. I mean, I had moments, but as a whole, I didn't hate myself. I enjoyed high school. You know, I'm glad it happened. It reminded me of my high school experience. I think they brought something about it. I forgot what it was, but something about it reminded me of pep rallies and Spirit Week, and I remember those were always the highlight of my high school experience. Everyone in my high school always looked forward to Spirit Week and the homecoming games, and it made me wish I had a relationship in high school because I did not. I was single, but it made me wish I had that like high school love that Eliza and Wallace had. They were meant for each other, and then like the climax of the story made me sad because it's supposed to make you sad, but I love them so much. And it just ended so well. The 360 ended. I love the whole 360. Was it 180? It's a 180 ending, but it's one of those books where the first line and the last line are the same. And it was a fucking punch in the gut. It was a feel-good novel that I needed, especially at the time I read this because it was like kind of in the middle of quarantine. It made me wish the webcomic was real. I think it's called Monstrous Sea, and it made me wish it was real because she has to be an amazing writer if people of all ages were enjoying it. because she made comments how like young kids were, obviously people her age, because I think that was a target audience considering her age. Her teacher was a fan, adults were fans. It got me thinking, like, I wish I was as big a fan of something as people are of her comic, and it's like, my hyperfixation is Avatar The Last Airbender. Like, that, how I feel about Avatar The Last Airbender, having it be in hyperfixation, how I love the show, I can quote it, I have all my favorite characters, I have theories and headcanons and comics, is basically how people felt about Eliza's comic, and I thought that was really cool. So I guess that was like another thing for me to relate to, in the sense of relating to Wallace, because how I feel about ATLA is how he feels about this comic. I wish this was published when I was in high school. This came out my second year of college, so I missed the window, but it's something I think it's something I would have needed back in high school, because I've never related to a character like, besides our differences, I never related to a character like I did Eliza. And I don't know. Young Dom needed that, I think. We are here. We are done. Wow, was this a very weird video because I can't talk to save my life about things I like. Why is that? Why are so many people like that? We cannot talk about things we like, but we could just rant for hours about things we hate. But if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. Y'all know the drill. Let me know what your favorite book of the year was, what your top 10, what your worst book is, unless you want to wait to tell me that in my worst book video. I hope 2021 is better. It was so hard for me to make this list just because of such an awkward reading year, so I'm hoping 2021 is better and I have more to talk about. So without further ado, I'm going to peace out and I will see you guys later. Ciao, tutti!